There are many countries with extreme realities, but surely it is hard to believe that in one of the most overpopulated countries on the planet, millions of people can survive on less than $15 a month and have a life expectancy of less than 50 years. In this new video of Uncensored World, we are going to know Burundi, the poorest country, but at the same time, one of the most extraordinary and resilient in the world. Burundi, a place with traditions as surprising as that of the kunyaza, the custom that makes its women probably, and despite the economic and social difficulties they live, the most intimately satisfied of the planet, because a local custom forces to master the art of giving pleasure. Burundi is a country marked by misery, having been considered for decades as the poorest and least happy country in the world. A region where the majority of its population lacks access to electricity and the most basic resources, living in conditions where something as simple as owning a bicycle becomes a luxury item reserved only for a privileged few with the ability to change their lives. This vehicle has a different meaning in Burundi, since it not only symbolizes status, but also options for survival, although it also endangers those who own it, since driving on the roads of this country, considered among the most dangerous in the world, is an act that can literally cost you your life, as you will soon find out. The aggressiveness of life in Burundi is also reflected in its wild and unforgiving nature. Its waters are home to one of the world's fiercest predators, the dreaded Goliath tigerfish. This monster of nature, with its jaw full of sharp, enormous teeth, perfectly symbolizes the daily struggle for survival in Burundi. A living example of the saying, "The big fish eats the little fish," which unfortunately has a lot to do with this sad reality. Get ready to discover the curiosities, realities, and mysteries of the poorest and most unhappy country on Earth. Let's get started. Welcome to Burundi, one of the most enigmatic but unfortunately also challenging countries in Africa. Burundi has been considered the poorest country in the world for more than 6 decades by agencies such as the World Bank and the IMF, facing extreme conditions of poverty and inequality. The majority of its population lives on less than $15 a month, and large families depend on this income. The daily reality is bleak. In addition, only a fraction of the population has access to electricity, and unemployment affects the majority of its inhabitants, consolidating Burundi as the unhappiest country in the world, according to multiple studies. As you will see, this poverty has a profound impact on all aspects of life, which is why the average life expectancy barely exceeds 49 years, while access to basic services such as drinking water, education, and medical care is extremely limited. A good part of this reality has to do with its geography and history, as you will now understand. Located in the east of the continent, Burundi is a small country with a size that could be compared to that of countries like Belgium or El Salvador, or the state of Maryland in the United States, but with a population density that places it among the most populated countries in the world. Despite having an area of just 27,834 square kilometers, its population is well over 10 million people, making it an incredibly dense territory. To put it in perspective, Burundi ranks 17th in terms of population density worldwide. This extreme density is due, in part, to the country's high fertility rates, as Burundi has one of the highest birth rates in the world, which is curious, considering it has been ranked as the poorest country on the planet for decades. This phenomenon could be related to deep-rooted cultural practices and beliefs, such as kunyaza, a tradition that encourages female stimulation and intimate satisfaction in relationships. While we will explore this fascinating topic later, suffice it to say that these customs have contributed to maintaining high fertility in a nation facing the worst of life's hardships. This has to do with the fact that, for decades, Burundi has been considered the poorest country in the world, and also the unhappiest. This reality has to do with the fact that the majority of the country's population has to survive on less than $15 a month, which is equivalent to approximately 250 Mexican pesos a month, about 8 pesos a day. In addition, and also because of this, life expectancy in the country averages 49 years, a figure that reflects the harsh conditions in which its population lives. These statistics are not only shocking, but reveal a reality that contrasts with the natural and cultural beauty of the country. A life of survival that has a lot to do with the scarcity of resources and lifestyle, with realities like the one you will soon learn about when risking your life on one of the most dangerous roads in the world, carrying huge loads on your back on bicycles without brakes. This poverty has deep roots in Burundi's geography and recent history. As a landlocked country, its economy is almost entirely dependent on agriculture, a sector highly vulnerable to climate change and with limited productivity due to lack of infrastructure and technology. In addition, Burundi lacks significant mineral resources that can be exploited to generate income, leaving it in an extremely weak economic position vis-à-vis its African neighbors. Burundi's recent past has also played a crucial role in its current situation. For decades, the country was marked by ethnic tensions and armed conflicts that devastated its infrastructure and economy. The civil war, fought for more than a decade, left deep scars not only on the population, but also on the country's ability to move forward as a nation. A significant example of this devastation is found in the drastic reduction of its indigenous population. The Twa, a pygmy people who inhabited these lands for millennia and are considered the oldest inhabitants of the African continent, once represented the largest part of Burundi's population. However, the lethal effects of devastating conflicts reduced the Twa to less than 1% of the country's current inhabitants. The Twa were drastically reduced after the arrival of the Hutu and Tutsi, people of Bantu origin who migrated to the area centuries ago. The Hutus, mainly farmers, and the Tutsis, dedicated to pastoralism, established social and political structures that relegated the Twa to the margins of society. This domination resulted in a significant loss of territory, resources, and autonomy for the Twa, who historically depended on the forests for their livelihoods. In addition to this, ethnic conflicts between Hutu and Tutsi, particularly during the tragic conflict in Rwanda, had devastating effects on the Twa. Although they were not the main target of these conflicts, massive displacement and widespread violence deeply affected this group. As a result, the Twa, who played a crucial role in Burundi's history and culture, are now struggling to maintain their traditions and identity in the face of marginalization and neglect. The situation of the Twiwe is a reflection of the impact that the conflicts have had on the social fabric of Burundi. Their drastic decline is not only a reminder of the atrocities suffered, but also a sign of cultural loss and the need to preserve the ethnic diversity that once enriched these lands. The example of the Twa is an example of what is happening in this society, something that also has to do with another factor that has contributed to Burundi's poverty: its limited access to energy resources. In Burundi, less than 5% of the population has access to electricity, which means that most economic activities are carried out in a manual and rudimentary manner. In schools and businesses, energy constraints have led to ingenious and precarious solutions. For example, in some communities, plastic bottles filled with water and chlorine embedded in roofs are used as a makeshift form of lighting during the day. This method, known as bottle light, refracts sunlight and provides sufficient brightness to illuminate interior spaces without the need for electricity. These creative strategies reflect the resilience of communities, but also highlight the urgency of improving the country's energy infrastructure. Lack of energy not only limits economic and educational opportunities, but also severely affects healthcare, which has a direct effect on both the hope and quality of life of Burundians. As health centers without adequate lighting or refrigeration for medicines face extreme challenges in caring for their patients, perpetuating a cycle of poverty and precariousness that seems almost impossible to break. In addition, Burundi faces significant challenges due to its geographical position. Surrounded by countries that also face economic and political problems, the country has few opportunities to trade or receive foreign investment. Its location, in the heart of East Africa, also makes it vulnerable to the impacts of regional conflicts and climate crises, which further hampers its development. Because of all these difficulties, Burundi has been repeatedly ranked in recent decades as the unhappiest country in the world, according to various international reports, such as the United Nations World Happiness Report. Economic constraints, lack of access to basic services such as electricity and medical care, and the scars of a past marked by ethnic conflict and civil war have contributed to this perception. For many people in Burundi, the daily struggle for survival leaves little room for emotional well-being, perpetuating a reality that stands in stark contrast to the cultural richness and resilience of its people. A daily struggle that reveals the extreme inequalities in Burundi, where something as common as a bicycle is considered a true luxury. In this country, this humble vehicle not only symbolizes status, but also hope, as having access to a bicycle can make the difference between survival and the end, in a country where opportunities are as limited as basic resources. For Burundians, a bicycle represents mobility, employment, and the possibility of improving the quality of life. Although often, like almost everything in this country, this reality also comes at a high cost of living. The motive behind this luxury is deeply rooted in the country's economy and geography. In Burundi, the bicycle is much more than a means of transportation. It is a vital tool for work and livelihood. Farmers use it to transport their crops, such as bananas, essential in the brewing of traditional banana beer, while others use it for long trade routes, or even to access distant markets. Unfortunately, acquiring a bicycle is out of reach for many, due to the disproportionate costs. If in Burundi the majority of the population lives on less than $15 a month, and bicycles sell for more than $100, many people would have to spend their entire salary for more than half a year to get one, which makes it impossible for many to own one. Despite its usefulness and potential for improving the quality of life of Burundians, this means of transport is also linked to one of the most tragic aspects of life in the country: its roads, considered among the most dangerous in the world. In a country with mountainous terrain and poor infrastructure, cyclists speed down steep hills carrying goods that can weigh hundreds of kilos. Surprisingly, many cyclists in Burundi descend steep slopes without brakes, as using them could cause tires to burst or unbalance the load due to the weight they are carrying. This makes every ride an act of extreme bravery, where risking one's life becomes part of the daily routine. The combination of sharp curves, unpredictable weather, and poor road conditions further increases the risks, resulting in frequent and tragic accidents, often fatal. Despite exposing themselves to deadly risks, many of them earn a mere 90 cents a day, while others, the less fortunate not having bicycles, walk for miles barefoot carrying their goods on their heads to earn less than $1 a day. In addition, the relationship between cyclists and truck drivers on these roads creates constant danger. In an attempt to save effort, many cyclists cling to the wake of trucks, a practice that not only endangers their lives but also those of other road users. Authorities have tried to implement regulations to prevent these behaviors, but cyclists, driven by necessity, often evade them. In this context, every bicycle trip is a bid for life, an act of courage that reflects the resilience and creativity of Burundians in the face of adversity. Paradoxically, despite the risks, the bicycle remains a symbol of wealth and success in Burundi. Owning one is an achievement that opens doors to job opportunities and improves living conditions. Crowded repair shops and farmers who depend on these vehicles to bring their products to market demonstrate their relevance in the local economy. But as you may have gathered, this same relevance underscores the harsh living conditions in the country, where danger and poverty coexist with amazing human fortitude, facing daily challenges with admirable determination. Fortunately, for the people of Burundi, it is not all adversity and deprivation, as one of their most notable cultural traditions is kunyaza, an intimate practice that puts female pleasure at the center of attention. This custom not only reflects respect for the needs of Burundian women, but also encourages a more humane and connected approach to couple relationships.